Hey everybody, it's Professor Goldstein. How are you today? I hope everybody is healthy and doing well at Kingsborough and doing well in life and love and business and in everything else that matters for living. I have just a couple things. Some of you have not turned in your assignment, and so I'm being extraordinarily lenient. I'm going to give you until tomorrow, Thursday, to get your assignment in. If it is not in, then you get an F on the assignment. That F goes towards your grade. Please, please. I'm a good-hearted guy. I love everybody. I want people to succeed. This is the easiest assignment in the world. All you need to do is email it to me at michael.goldstein@kbcc.cuny.edu. Email it to me directly and as an attachment, as a word attachment. Don't put it on Brightspace. Send it right to me on email. It's 2 paragraphs, double spaced, just telling me about your business experience. That's all I'm asking of any of you. Please get it to me by Thursday. Today is Wednesday. I'm giving you to the end of business, close of business Thursday. Friday, I will start grading them. And if I don't have one from you, that's an F, and that goes towards your final grade. And if you get enough Fs in my class, then you're going to fail my class, and I don't want to fail anybody. I hate failing people. Everybody in my class succeeds. So if you get your work to me, you're going to pass. You're going to pass. Get me that work, okay? You don't get me that work, it's a fail, okay? So get me that work. Enough of the tough stuff. Back to business. I have a responsibility. I have to get you that syllabus. I have to put it up. Syllabus is really just basically what I've been doing, but you'll see that as we get towards the middle of the semester, I'm going to change over to doing your business plan, and I really want to talk a little bit about that today with the second part of my story about business. So right now, I was talking to you last time about the business that I am in, which is these things, cigars, right? Cigars, which are, I don't encourage anybody to smoke. So if anybody says, oh, Professor Goldstein's teaching about cigars and he's encouraging us to smoke, no, that's not true. I don't encourage you to smoke. It's up to you as an adult whether you want to smoke whatever you want to smoke or not smoke whatever you want to smoke, drink whatever you want to drink, not drink whatever you want to drink. I do not make decisions for you as an adult, and I don't encourage you to do one thing or another. I do encourage you to learn business. That I do. That you could accuse me of all the time. And I do encourage you to make money. That you can accuse me of all the time. I hope that you have a long and successful life earning money. Either, enough to be comfortable or enough to be wealthy or but enough to make you so that you can have a life filled with all the comforts of what money bring, which means home, an apartment, car, vacations, health, pay for good health care, insurance for your family and yourself, whatever money brings you in terms of life. And also, money could also help with charity, helping others, helping your church, your mosque, your synagogue, whatever it is. It helps. Hopefully, you give some of that money to others to make their lives better. Hopefully, maybe one day you'll give money back to Kingsborough as an alumnus and help another student. So let's talk about my business. So last I was talking about the cigar itself and basically how I buy cigars. So the way it works with cigars is there are many cigar makers in the world. I would say, if I was to guess, maybe 2,000, maybe 3,000 cigar makers in the world, or prominent cigar makers. There's some really small boutique ones that make a couple of hundred cigars, but no, I'm talking about cigar makers that sell to cigar stores. I would say maybe 2,000 cigar makers in the world that sell to cigar makers, perhaps more. And they come from all different places. So basically, cigars are made in a number of warm weather areas. Tobacco is made, although certain parts of tobacco are made in cold areas, like up here in the Northeast in Pennsylvania, in Amish country. They grow tobacco, but it's mostly filler for the cigars, wrapper for the cigars. Although some of it's it's smokable. It's obviously good. It's used in cigars. But there's all kinds of places where cigars are made. They're made in the Dominican Republic. They're made in Cuba. They're made in Nicaragua. They're made in Ecuador. They're made, Chile, Italy. They're grown. They're grown all over the world. And there are different types of tastes. People have different types of tastes in cigars. Some cigars are infused with certain flavors and so forth. The point being that these cigar companies where they make cigars, these are what I'm talking about here, handmade cigars. These are cigars that are made by hand. In other words, they're picked. The tobacco is picked either by hand or by machine, but mostly by hand, and then it's left out to dry. And it's a very natural process. And then once it's dried and it's at a point where it can be used as tobacco, has none of the additives that cigarettes have. None of the things that are added into cigarettes to make them horrible. The chemicals that are added in. No, cigars are purely natural. They're really from the tobacco. They're just rolled. So you're smoking the leaf itself, or a mixture of the leaves themselves. And then there are individuals that actually sit there and cut them and roll them. And it's quite a art to roll a cigar. These are artisans who have been practiced for a long time, and the rolling of cigars is a very complicated. There's all different shapes and sizes to the cigars. There's all different types of bindings to the cigars. There's all sorts of ways of rolling a cigar. And then you want a cigar that could draw easily, meaning that it could smoke easily and smoke well and lasts a long time, and the binding doesn't break up and it doesn't disintegrate in your hand and so forth. And then a cigar is a very fragile thing. It has to be kept at a certain temperature. It has to have certain humidity in order to last. It ages very well. The flavor intensifies as it ages in the cigar. Sometimes, you'll see cigars that are, 10, 20 years old, and maybe even more, that are utilized in smoking. And the whole point of that is it's a very long, complicated process in order to manufacture the cigar. That's why the cigar costs so much money. That's why this little bit of leaf can cost, $20 for one cigar, of $30, $40, $100, $150 for a cigar, depending on what kind of cigar it is. And then the cigar is it's boxed. There are labels put on it. That's an expensive process, the labeling itself, and boxing and all the manufacturing and then the marketing, and then it is shipped to these vendors who sell them to the individual stores. Now a lot of it's done on the internet. Most people buy their cigars on the internet, but a lot of people still buy them. They like to come into the stores themselves and buy them when they come into the stores. So the way it works when it comes into a store is I buy a certain number of... So a vendor will come in and say, listen, we want our cigars displayed at your store. We want to sell you our cigars. Hopefully, you like our cigars and want to sell them. And they will usually come in and they'll give you some cigars to test and see if you like them. And then they usually require that in order for you to buy their cigars, that you display a certain amount of boxes of their cigars. They're called facing. It's called facing. They want their cigars displayed in a certain way. A lot of them want the best. They want to be front and center. They want to have a huge display. Some of them will even, offer you signage and all sorts of, gifts and things like that to display their cigars. And then the more cigars you buy from them, the lower the price. Obviously, if you buy a large amount of boxes of cigars, they will lower the price on the cigars. If the less you buy, the higher the cost of the cigars. So usually you buy a large supply of cigars from a cigar vendor. And there's a huge amount of negotiating that goes on. And, if a cigar is not selling, then you have to get rid of those cigars and get rid of that vendor. And you don't want... Sometimes, a vendor doesn't just rep one set of cigars. It might rep 3 or 4 different companies. And so you might want to get rid of one of the cigars, but they may force you to take the cigar in order to get another type of cigar that they offer that your customers want. That's a real big problem. A lot of times I will have cigars that I don't like, that are not selling in my store, but there is one set of cigars that are doing extraordinarily well in the store. And those cigars will do sell, and I can't get rid of the lower end cigars without keeping the higher end cigars. So that's one thing. What else? What else could I tell you about this? It's a very strange thing because customer whims are in terms of what they like and don't like come and go. Sometimes they love a cigar, sometimes they don't love. Sometimes they come in. A customer will come in, buy 10 of one cigar, and then the next you think, oh, this customer loves this cigar. You're going to go out and buy these cigars, and then he says, I'm tired of that cigar, and he moves on to another one. So you lose you lose all this money by buying those cigars for that customer. Now, that is one stream of revenue, really a huge stream of revenue at the cigar store, which is where people come in and buy cigars. Sometimes they come in and buy boxes of cigars. Sometimes they come in and buy single cigars. Sometimes they buy lots of different groups of cigars. We call them sticks. So when they come in, they might buy 7 sticks, 10 sticks, 20 sticks, 3 sticks, all in different price ranges. It's almost like going into a candy store and buying different types of candy. And at the end of the day, that's a huge source of revenue for the store. And it really depends upon a lot of things. It depends upon the day of the week. It depends upon the weather. It depends upon the month of the year. It depends upon if it's close to a holiday, more sales will go up. So it's very much due to the whims of nature and the whims of time. And then at the same time, you have this foundation, which is the sale of the memberships, which are always the same. You may lose a member or two and then gain a member or two, but that stays pretty much the same. You gain enough members. That's a solid amount of people that come in, and they enjoy coming in, and they become your regulars. They come in all the time and they buy cigars at your store. Then we have, as I said before, there's all sorts of ancillary revenue, which we get by selling lighters and ashtrays and tobacco and all sorts of accoutrement. There are cigar cutters. There are things like that go with cigars. We sell all that sort of stuff in our store. So everything was worked out in my business plan when I first started this business. So basically, the business plan came up with is really about how you come up with the idea for the business, what your business, then you talk a little bit about your experience in the business. And what was my experience? Well, I had always been a cigar lover. I knew about cigars as a user, as someone who had been a customer of cigars for many, many years. But, hold on a second. What I didn't know was the backside of the business. And the only way I learned the backside of the business was going around to different cigar stores and asking the owners how it works. Really, can you show me how it works? What are the pitfalls? What are the good things? And by the way, cigar stores fail all the time. They do. They fail for all sorts of reasons. They overbuy supply and then they can't sell it. Their rent goes up. They can't keep up with the rent. They don't have a lot of them don't have lounges like our cigar store does, where they don't have revenue. A lot of them get tired of, there's a huge amount of tax that gets paid to the state. A lot of them get tired of having to pay the tax. They feel like the taxes are always going up, and they move to another state or something like that where the taxes are lower. A lot of them don't do it because they get older. Like a lot of them started out, as I said before, cigars are a business, I think, for maybe a group of people that are aging out. So a lot of the cigar store owners were older, and they kind of they owned the stores themselves, and they kind of aged out, and they decided not to sell because they couldn't sell. Nobody wanted to buy, and they kind of just closed the stores down. Now, in my store, this store existed before myself and my partners came in and bought it. This had already existed, had a reputation already, and it was a pretty bad reputation. Although it had good customers, it had a reputation of the owner not being a nice person. And he had gotten older and sicker and grumpier, I think. And he had a lot of people had gotten very upset with him and gone to other stores and said that they'll never come back. And it took a lot, and we're still working on it because people still come into our place and say, oh, the guy who was here was just a nasty man, or and they said, I never came back in here. And now I see it's a new owner, and, this is years after we've owned it for 3 years now, and people are still coming in saying, oh, I had no idea that this was under new ownership. We changed the name of the store, but people, sometimes they just don't know that there's new owners. And so that he had pushed away a lot of customers with his attitude and his abrasive manner, and so the store had become had a bad rep, and it took a long time for us to turn it around. And also, the store was not nice inside; it was old and dirty, and he didn't clean the place. And we one of the things I could say about this store now is it's extraordinarily clean. One of the things that we're all very, very proud of with our store is that it's constantly being cleaned. There's constant. We're cleaning the windows of the display cases. We're cleaning the floors, the bathroom, the background, and we also upgraded everything. Everything we painted, we constructed new things, redid the bathroom, redid all the humidors, redid where we keep the cigars, redid the display cases. Everything was redone, cleaned up, new chairs, new lounge area. Everything was freshened up, made nicer. It's actually quite beautiful now. People walk in, they're like, wow, this is beautiful. And one of the things that we do also that really is much different than what he did was we do a lot of events. When I say events, it's very much like these cigar vendors will come in and do a tasting of their cigars. They'll offer all sorts of discounts for their cigars. We have music. We'll have live musicians come in to the store and play music. We have all kinds of sport events. We'll have food. We'll offer free food, for members and for people who buy cigars. My dog is crying right now. And all sorts of things that help grow the business. And so that's really what we've done with this business. Now, really, it was all in my business plan originally that we would do these types of things, that we would grow the store and change it every year. And the idea was that we would start off with, cleaning it up, but eventually we would always keep adding things on to the store that would make it of benefit to the customers, so that we would increase the sales. I'm not sure that this video accomplished what I want to do today, so I'm a little disappointed in how I approached it. I wanted to talk a little bit about the business plan, the beginning of the business plan. So here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to do one more video for Friday and talk about the first idea behind the business plan, which is really the idea that you come up with. You have to it's really, how do people come up with ideas for businesses? And that's really what I'm going to talk about in the next video. And I'll do a short video. It won't be a long one for Friday. And talk about that. But I hope you kind of understand the idea behind a business is that, and my dog is crying, so it's going to be, you have to plan these things out. It's not something that just happens. You think a lot about your business before you start it. And there's a whole series of planning options that you go through before you start it with a sole proprietorship and a partnership. And I'll talk to you a little bit about that in the next video, okay? Have a great day.